no small thing. Hex League, maybe with only one region, but it is one of the regions that really takes a lot of our attention. Let's get into gamer number 3, though, as we are about to hit the halfway point of day 1.
All right, we've got a standard carousel this time. No spatula shenanigans as we start here on Dark Hydra's board. This is a player we haven't seen a whole lot of coming out here into the competitive space, but one who is clearly experienced with the history of TFT, so I'm expecting very good fundamentals. With a double rod start, I'm also expecting an AP composition.
Absolutely. I mean, we've already established that does seem like the way to go. Though, of course, Astral's being a little bit taken down in terms of power level from being the start to be all starts to a start that can potentially be very good.
Yeah. And I think that's obviously a much healthier place to have it. These economic starts like Lagoon, like Astral, have been rather defining the meta alongside Shimmer Scale because they have the potential to slingshot you above the competition. But no longer are they as forcible. I'm going to be looking for the players in the early game who have naturaled into those compositions, who have naturaled into those economic engines, as we see Hydra with a potential Shimmer Scale start himself.
Yeah, it's got the torn between two avenues here, but I think finding the Lux is going to be a little bit too tempting. That was a lot better chance of getting Astral off straight away. Small note about our Mirage for this game, though we haven't been seeing a ton of Mirage being played. It is Warlord's Honor, one of the more appealing choices.
We are getting an update as well, just to set everyone up for the game, that Namzi is not going to be Mage this time. Unfortunate for me, I always love seeing our Froggy girl succeed. But that's a lot of gold coming up here for Hydra, and he will pick up everything off the roll. First augments, Peter. It's time to get things rolling.
Oh boy, so yeah, we get the choices here. We've got the we've got the very specific approach, and we've got the very generic approach instead. Dark Hydra's ascension means if they can build up this strongboard and stick around, they'll have a whole heap of generic power. We have got the chance here for Ak to head down the guild path, but this will lock them in this route for the rest of the game.
It will, but it's so strong right now, especially with the strength of Zippy, relative flexibility of the guild composition. Worst case, you can go all dragons plus a Zippy in there and still meet the qualifications, keep a Sejuani for like a Sejuani Hecarim frontline, still get those items. So I really like this opener. I really like that there's the instant Zeke slam. This is going to be a potential win streak here for Ak.
We'll check in with Arrow, who has gone for the more generic setup. Looks like they're going to try and find their economy through grabbing hold of some early Lagoon, and the blue buff would certainly make that work very well. Unfortunately for them, they haven't managed to pick up that third Lagoon unit as of yet, so all of these potential stacks are going to waste.
Yeah, second win not doing a whole lot either, because you're not going to get any damage out. Doesn't really matter how much healing you're going to have if everyone's on the enemy side with full health.
No, personally speaking, I don't know how you feel about this, Navigator, but I personally prefer to, with my Lagoon, my personal preference is if you've got a strong board, you're going to get to cast a whole lot because you're winning rounds. You get to cast all the way to the end of the round. If you're getting run over, as was the case there for Arrow, then you only get a few casts off before you die.
I think it depends on what your priority is, right? Because there is that sort of very heavy tempo version of Lagoon where you're looking for, like you say, getting those casts off as fast as possible, getting those items and gold as fast as possible, and slingshotting yourself forward. But we saw last game the issue with Lagoon, if you don't have those proper items off the start, you can start struggling as you get to the late game. So there's the alternative where you just go for the loss streak, take however many casts you can get, but guarantee yourself priority on those carousels, guarantee yourself the loss streak economy, and find your way back into the game based on that. So I think it's two sides of the same coin to me.
Yeah, no, it looks like Arrow's actually found a really good place. Now they've got the Lagoon active. Exactly the same. Their board's taking a really long time to die, so there's absolutely tons of these Lagoon stacks coming through. They're going to be hitting 20 up over perhaps the next round and really starting to get their economy going. They do actually win there, which is surprisingly going to end up being a little bit of a problem, but at least they've got a solid base to build from.
not ideal, of course, when you're going into this early game. The goal, the golden standard, is going to be to win streak all the way, get that 5-win streak, maximum economy from there. But Arrow now is going to have to decide whether he wants to go back to loss streaking and go for a smaller loss streak going into Krugs, or if he wants to start looking towards this acceleration. And I think the difference maker is going to be his item priority.
All right, we'll check in with Truziak. We haven't seen so far. We've actually getting one of the relatively rare choices here, picking up the Dragonmancer emblem. So we've got a chance to see if we're going to be seeing the return of the big bitey Nunu, or perhaps a different approach to Dragonmancer.
And Peter, if we are going to talk about Dragonmancer Nunu, I'm going to need you to repeat the laugh you did at top of show.
I'll do it if Nunu turns up.
Okay, all right. I'm looking forward to it. Now, Truziak, you heard me. You got to go for it at this point. That Infinity Edge, that's not going to work, man. That's not enough.
Well,
I need the Nunu laugh in my life.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. I mean, certainly with the true damage dropping off, Nunu did get a little bit of a buff in terms of like raw damage, but what we were talking about in the previous cast, the Dragon's Claw coming in as a very popular counter to Sohm is also a great way of dealing with Nunu.
And I think it's becoming a little bit higher in players' estimation than it was earlier on in 7.5. Now that we're seeing Sohm a lot more frequently, and I think people are starting to value the healing a little bit on those tankier front lines. Something like a Terra, I've seen it quite frequently on with the Gargoyle Stone Plate. If you can't go double Gargoyles, try and augment that tankiness. As we see Hydra down here, loss streaking in last place, but has that Shimmer Scale start going.
This is really interesting because I was going to bring this up in this game because we haven't been really seeing Shimmer Scale being played despite getting buffed relatively substantially. This doesn't seem like the world's strongest board. Again, a bit like the Astrals. If you've got a lot of units in your winning rounds, you're going to be getting a big payout from the gem. If you're getting hammered, you don't even have any units to be able to pay off after 15 seconds with.
And I feel like the reason we're not seeing Shimmer Scale is it's in a similarly awkward position to Jade, right? Where Jade, you're just kind of like, what do I do with these items? The only carry that feels viable is Xiao Yu, but then what do I do if I get any AP items? And I feel like Shimmer Scale currently is in a similar spot where you're like, okay, how do I cap this board? Because it sure isn't with more Shimmer Scale units.
Well, something we did see from Dark Hydra as of the beginning of that round is they've slammed in the Archangels and the Hextech Gunblade, so they've turned a loss streak into a win streak and actually got that gem to pay off. So Dark Hydra's in a little bit of an awkward spot here where they're starting towards a win streak avenue, but they don't have the goal to be able to level and make their board significantly stronger.
Yeah, if he loses this round coming up, things are looking dire. His HP will be somewhere in the 70s range, and you may be thinking that's fine, and from a context-stripped point of view, absolutely. However, going from that strong loss streak, like you mentioned, to a win to a loss means you won't get any bonus gold during the PvE round, and at the competitive level, where every advantage matters, that is a death sentence.
Let's take a look around the field as we are coming close to the end. Magical, of course, we saw from before, doing some pretty nice stuff, has got themselves the Jades. Enox as well up at the top of the table, completely undefeated as of stage 2. Hopefully we'll get a chance to glimpse and see if they win out their round, because as much as Dark Hydra does not have very much money to work with, I imagine Enox has the opposite problem.
Yeah, full win streak going into PvE. We'll see if that maintains as this round concludes. Dark Hydra will continue their win streak, as will Enox, the full 5-win streak. Be interested in seeing what is on their board at the moment that's allowed them to do this.
So we'll hop across there in a second. So as we look across the field, we can see that we don't have the massive drop-off for anybody towards the end of the table. Magical and Volta both down in the 70s, but barely is... Oh, I had exactly the same reaction. Apparently,
looks familiar.
Shimmer Scale time.
Yeah, it's the exact same board, just with an itemized Volibear instead of one just sitting on the gem. So Shimmer Scale having a great time this game, and as we mentioned at the beginning of the cast, this is a great economic engine to keep you going, and with Enox being here with a full win streak off the back of it, setting himself up for a fantastic late game.
I really like that little optimization from Enox there as well. They put the Volibear right at the back of the field to try and make sure they don't actually kill the Krugs too quickly before they get the gold payoff.
Yeah. That is those little things. I think as TFT has been evolving, I've been especially seeing it this set. Those little adaptations have been meaning so much more, and you love to see it.
But looking through our economy, we can see here that the players are mostly keeping their gold in their pockets rather than necessarily directly on the field. So we would be expecting things to be more sedate. Everyone, apart from Anox, is at level 5. But we'll see if that changes coming into stage 3.
Yeah, Matchkill, the only one going for a loss streak at the moment, sitting there at 4. Everyone else is pretty much without a loss or win streak whatsoever. If you look at that middle of the pack, there's only 4 people throughout the lobby who have any streak whatsoever going.
Yeah, and I think that's going to really help both Anox and Magil just to have that proportionally large amount of money as it's Shimmer Scales meeting Shimmer Scales. How awkward.
Lots of damage here on this Ezreal, potentially. I don't know if it's going to be able to compete with that Volibear, though, as we can see doing plenty of damage to the front line, but the Volibear himself is completely uncontested.
Yeah, you've got the payoff, but I think this Ezreal is going to get a good amount of work done. The front line is good from Dark Hydra, and this is going to be, well, say not the top of the table versus the bottom, but it could well be the end of the winning streak. Anox will have to settle for a very successful stage 2. Stage 3, very much not their friend.
I think this salvages the lobby for everyone else coming into the second augment choice. If you leave someone win streaking further into stage 3, the gap between them gets so much larger. By stopping that win streak, Dark Hydra has kind of brought everyone else back into contention.
Yeah, and I think that's super, super important. And this is one of the things that's so wonderful about seeing TFT in this tournament context is you do get concerns like that coming to the forefront from our players that, you know, they're thinking about not just this game, but the games to come. And of course, the whole point of day 1, which is to make it into the top half of players and make day 2.
Something you and I have talked about as well is how do you quantify when a player's doing well, right? How do you quantify the tempo of a lobby? And it's looking at the win streaks and the loss streaks. Now that everyone's kind of been knocked out of their streaks, things are slowing down a little bit. We're coming back to Trusiek's board here. We were wondering about what this Dragonmancer is going to be doing.
Oh,
well,
boy.
Frankly, I still don't quite know, but we sure do have an Infinity Edge jeweled gauntlet to start us off.
And it's on a Wukong of all people.
Yeah.
You love to see it. I can't help shaking the feeling this is going to be the Jace setup, because this was heavily suggested coming into this patch. You know, we move away from Nunu, you have that true damage, but Jace is very well set up, doesn't have that big knock-up anymore, but has more resistances, so kind of combines the best of both worlds by having a ton of damage and a ton of survivability at the same time.
Yeah, with the innate heal, he has a ton of tankiness just by building damage. And across the board, that's something that we've been seeing an adaptation towards Jace 4. So if Trusiek is able to econ up to that point where he can start rolling for those Jaces, I suspect we're going to be seeing a lot of power coming from this board. Ak going to be taking a loss here, falling down a little bit on that leaderboard, but still maintaining this top spot.
As you mentioned, you know, with the loss of the win streak for Anox, the domination at the top of the table, I think we are starting to see things come together a little bit more. Magical down the bottom is anyone who's in sort of the real peril right now, getting dangerously close to 50. But for Ak, you know, they picked up the guilds straight away. They stuck with it the whole way through as we expected. Hopefully, we're going to get to see more zippy nonsense, as we noted before. It's been happening a lot off-stream. Now perhaps is the game for it to happen in front of our eyes.
All right, now coming in to update where the board is at. Dark Hydra now on a win streak. We saw them tackle Anox's win streak and see if they can maintain their own in this composition. But Zippy, I think, has other plans for Dark Hydra, is that Ezreal will fall down in quick succession.
Yeah, I mean, we're kind of running into this now, aren't we, with the big pile of units that just refuse to die. Definitely not where Zippy is really the most comfortable. Would love to have a lot of low health units from before. As just to update on, you know, what we've kind of been discussing, or what the other casters have been discussing as well, with regards to the Trusiek and the Dragonmancer Spatula, the possibility of seeing the Lee Sin coming in as a potential option as well. I was also thinking that maybe we might even see an Ao Shin Dragonmancer by the time this is all done. A ton of different ways to go.
Ao Shin, Shyvana, there's a bunch of units that can utilize that Jeweled Gauntlet, i.e. combo, because it is so powerful, but all of those require a much later game spike than the Lee Sin carry would, for example. It does, however, require finding the Lee Sin too, and Trusiek is still stuck on a single copy of Lee Sin. So whatever it is, it's not forming up just yet as we move over to Volterix's board.
And so Volta going to be another one of the players of the many who started out with Astrals, but they stuck with them a lot longer than perhaps we would be expecting. So we've got the 3-star Scanner in here, and we're building up some good amount of other units as well. So for anyone who's not aware, the astral changes meaning that you are, you're getting a lot less units in the early game, a lot more gold, so it's quite hard to put together these high star boards which we've got for Volta.
But plenty of econ going to be coming out, and Voltairix, the traditional way he really likes to play is going for win streaks early so that he has plenty of time for his late game pivots. He'll go for stronger boards like those multiple dragons, and we've seen this find him success both on the ladder and in competitive. Going for Astrals, though, so far he hasn't been able to maintain that massive health streak, and looking at the way this board is performing at the moment, I'm not sure if he's even going to be able to win this round. It's getting closer than I think he'd like.
Yeah, I mean, the Scarlet's doing a really good job of keeping things up, and even Lux on Itemize has got the bonus AP from 5 Astrals, so it's hitting relatively hard. We don't have 3 Mage in as of yet, which would be a big boost up for Volta if they can get up to level 7. But right now, I think they're sticking at the low levels to try and push for, let's see, we need 1 more Vladimir coming in, and then we'll have all the 3 stars of the 1 cost, which would be huge.
And then it's easy to level up as much as you want. Try and get in a little bit stronger units to keep yourself up. As we see, Volta could win streak all the way into Wolves, just a 4-win streak, but that's a ton of econ as well, and would continue his playstyle and set him up for success in the later stages of the game.
Oh, there we go. So there's Lee Sin, though he's not actually the Dragon Monster, which is a little confusing. Maybe that's coming down the pipe. So this, of course, we've got to mention the change for Lee Sin coming in as of this patch. Now that he's going to more reliably be doing damage to the units on the tail end of his kick, he's very dangerous towards the backline.
Yeah, we can see that there. Tons of AoE, not enough damage to keep him going though. That's the struggle of the Lee Sin carry. Before you get a 2-star, it is pretty weak, and then if you're stuck on the 2-star still at the beginning of stage 5, it falls off again. Once you get that 3-star though, you're at a pretty solid spot till the end of stage 6. It is a very up and down composition, but I think with the last changes, it is stronger than it has been for the entirety of 7.5.
Volta's going to do a little bit more. Let's check out our economy. You can see Enox. That's our Shimmer Scale player, one of our Shimmer Scale players from before, up on the 80 goal, which of course is the place you only see Shimmer Scale players going.
Yeah, Enox is having a great game so far. Plenty of gold ahead of the pack, and that's going to be a champion duplicator there picked up by Voltairix in this PvE round. So that's going to let him set up for those late game carries a little bit easier. How has Enox only just found a Volibear 2? You're telling me he's win streaked for 4 rounds in a row, coming into stage 4, with a Volibear 1?
Apparently. I mean, yeah, Enox is playing this one spectacularly well. Mentioned, of course, before they streaked through stage 3, had that broken, but now they're back on streaking again, and they can still afford to level up while keeping themselves at max capacity. It's notable, you keep yourself up at 80 gold because you get the biggest return from your Shimmer Scale items. Right now, there's only 1 Shimmer Scale item there for Enox.
Yeah. It's enough to keep him alive, though, because he is putting that tanky item there on the Malphite, who's going to stay up for long enough to get that gem popping. And now running into a Deja, we finally see what Hydra's board was building towards. But I don't think it's going to be enough to stop this bear. It barely is, though. That's going to be a problem here for Enox. Finally going to lose that win streak. Look, I've got to honor her while she's not on the cast. We got to get at least 1 bear pun in there.
Well, let's put them on pause for now, and let's see if we can get something else. Of course, if you'd like to join in the conversation, perhaps critique us for using these jokes, hashtag TFT Rising Legends. You can do that. We keep a close eye on it, and you can break our hearts directly, Twitter.
Peter following up 2 of the worst puns we've made on air with, hey, get on Twitter.
Is this how you drive engagement?
This is true. This is true. That's a very good point. Yeah, get on Twitter. What's your favorite Volibear pun? Tell us. As we see Enox here with the final augment choice of the game, going for a portable forge. 3 strong options, depending on where he wants to take this composition. It will be the Infinity Force.
I mean, certainly traditionally with the Shimmer Scales, you'd be expecting to see him go more in the, the Xayah route long term, but we've actually gone away from Shimmer Scale here which is really interesting. We've got a super strong volley bear, but we've actually dropped down to just 2 of Brutal Dragonmancer, Rage Ring, and Cavalier. I think we're starting to see Aox moving into the late game.
Yeah, Aox is just looking for any open option. The items that they have picked are pretty flexible for AD compositions, especially with what they've just picked up and built as well off the back end. So they have a lot of carries open to them at the moment. They're just waiting to see which one they hit.
All right, well, it makes sense we're going to be spending that money to get away, so let's take a quick look across the augments being picked up. Arrow, of course, going for the mages. We've certainly seen them have a big impact. Dark Hydra going for that Jeweled Lotus. And, of course, we've even got the Beast Den coming in for Volta, newly changed as of 7.5 to be a lot easier to get off and have a whole bunch of extra attack speed for your comp.
Interested to see where he goes with that. While we're on Axe board, though, he's got the Cavalier Spat on the Zippy, looking for a strong front line here. Could transition that into something like a Terra in the later stages of the game to augment that high cap Aushin in the back line.
This is really fascinating what we're seeing here up against Axe, though. There's still no Dragonmancer Spat on the Lee Sin, going instead onto the Kiana. There must be something, at least I'm missing here, as to why this wouldn't be the case. Certainly Lee Sin's doing a decent job, but he's not doing the kill your entire backline immediately job that perhaps he needs to.
Yeah, he needs to be going to that level 3.
Ooh, wow.
Oh, that was pretty dirty there. I expect once we hit that 3-star Lee Sin, we're going to see this composition pack pop off. I also am wondering what that third item is going to be, whether it becomes a little bit more damage or a little bit of healing. And I think that also will help out Truciak's composition.
Oh, of course, yes. I'm being reminded that my brain fell out my ears. I forgot that Lee Sin was a Dragonmancer himself. I'm so used to trying to follow the specific paths of
We've
the
all had
emblems.
those moments.
Didn't even think to do it. But all right, we're on to the carousel. And we've got 2 players down at 20 HP, Magical and Flouders, both in a pretty rough spot.
Yeah, and I'm surprised because Magical has been sitting down on that bottom side of the ladder, but intentionally going for a loss streak, it felt like. So it seems that strategy has not paid off and has not transitioned them into the later stages of the game, in stark contrast to Dark Hydra, who is now 4-win streak once again. Deja 2 with the Warlords about to finish stacking. Even a Yasuo and Soraka on the board, only level 8. This board is looking mighty fine.
And this is the situation we were expecting to see the Mirage coming to the forefront. So again, reminder that this is Warlords, so that's a lot of raw stats coming in there as well, and a huge amount of damage items in there for our friend Deja. Doesn't have the, you know, the attack speed stacking of the Grince's Rage Blade, but when they do cast, they are going to make a huge impact. Unfortunately, the Rengar does send the cast off to the side, so this might go against them.
Oh, Gunblade healing, not quite enough. Hydra going to be losing that win streak right after the carousel, not even going to be able to hit that 5-win streak bonus. 20 gold, though, not terrible. Sells out to 32, so Econ's still in a decent spot, but forcing that sellout means 9 is going to be a little bit farther away than you'd like.
Let's check down Wedge Magical and see what they're up to. So we're seeing what we saw in our previous games as well, with the Guild and Jade, just seeing the flexibility to be able to fit pretty much anything you like in here. Actually going to be selling off. I think this might be, well, perfect timing from an observer there to see that we're going to see the transition to the more traditional setup of the Siphon and the Xiaoyu.
Not looking too great right now, though. 1 star on both of the carries. A 2-star tank in the front line for sure is going to do a lot, but coming into this composition from Flouders, I'm not sure if it's going to be enough.
So Flouders with the Dark Flight, of course we saw them going 8th before with a very, very ambitious comp to put together a whole bunch of dragons. In this case, they've got the comp online a lot earlier. Magical, I don't think he'll be taken out in this round, and certainly won't be taken out in this round. They've still got the 14 to hold on to, but you're right, it's a very narrow window for them to get back in and try and hit top 4.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not too proud to admit when I'm wrong. This board is a lot stronger than I thought it would be coming into this round, but you've got to look at the context as well. 14 HP, level 7, coming into stage 5. Magical is not long for this world unless he's going to hit 2 stars for both of these dragons, and even then, it's an iffy proposition.
Well, we do have the Order Dragon coming in here, so we've got Radiant items, and with so much of the comp being built around the Shioryu and the Siphon, picking up the Radiant Hand of Justice is going to be pretty big. But as you said, money is a big issue for Magical. They haven't got enough money to go searching for their 2-stars. They're in a very awkward spot. As we check back in with the Tempest version of Lee Sin, up to 3 items now. This is going to be, we're very close to seeing the 3-star Lee Sin you were talking about before. 1 away. And there we have it. This is the ultimate form of Lee Sin. 1 kick and everyone dies.
Truciak on a 7-loss streak finally may have turned their luck around. 6 Dragonmancer, Lee Sin 3 with best in slot items is going to decimate most of the compositions they're going to run into, especially here at stage 5, and may have saved the game for Truciak, but it may spell the doom of Magical on the other side.
Let's see where that kick lands. Being able to silence out the Lee Sin is going to make a huge difference in dropping his DPS. As you see, once the team starts to spread out, it goes a little bit more differently, but ultimately, this is very bad news for Magical. Said that perhaps they wouldn't be in elimination territory, but they are! -2, they are out. Flounders in peril as well.
Very powerful win there. Strong board here from Truciak, and unfortunately Magical went too far into the loss streak, was not able to salvage that game for themselves. But Truciak coming out of this now with a Radiant Thieves Gloves Yasuo 2 on top of the Lee Sin 3 should be able to carry them into the late stages of this round, recover their economy, and allow them to head towards that level 8 mark without too much trouble for the next couple of rounds.
I really like seeing this as well because, of course, the big problem for Dragon Master by design is it's all your eggs in one basket, but the Radiant Thieves Gloves can do a massive job. Flawless, though, with our friends, the Darkflight Essence, Darkflight Comp, they're going to be trying desperately to try and stay alive up against Zone, which, of course, we know is the comp to beat right now.
Yeah, we're going to see the double ZZ Rod, the value of that. The problem is, Malphite is dying last out of the entire team, so these Rengars have run over the rest of the composition. Luckily, Som has bought just enough time to pop off another ultimate, but the Rengar barely gets the kill. Now, one more ultimate would probably spell the doom here for this Silas, and it does. Arrow takes a loss, and Flounders will survive to fight another day.
I mean, this is what you're really hoping for when you've got the setup here for Flyers. You've got the 2 different Rengars who are ideally ending up in a situation where they're going to have all this Darkflight essence being pumped into them. Every time one of these Darkflight units dies, it gives the stats to everybody on the team. So both of these Rengars are potential round enders.
Yeah, now selling out. Not going to be going for the Rengar 3 just yet. Doesn't feel comfortable waiting on that economy, waiting on that chance, instead selling and trying to roll again for more upgrades.
All right, Volta, we saw them going deep into the Astral Tree, and they've not done anything different. They have got a Lux with a ludicrous selection of items on the back line. Not actually one-shotting people, surprisingly, despite having 2 Rabadons.
Doing way less damage than I would expect of a double Rabadon's Radiant Gunblade Lux, but surviving nonetheless, and that is what the Radiant Gunblade is best at. But it looks like this is an uncontested Rengar, and shockingly for me, it was the rest of the composition that got Volta the win this round. Looks like Flounders will fall out in 7th.
I am a little biased towards Darkflight. It's one of my favorite comps. As much as, right, keep trying to sneak Darkstar back into the set, and the Darkflight Essence version is just Darkstar over again for all you long-time viewers, and it's wonderful to see.
Now, Arrow going to be picking up a little bit more strength in the front line as Hydra. That Cavalier Spat is going to do a lot of work in the Mirage composition, gets a ton of tankiness there for the front line to stall even more for Deja, especially with Yasuo up front. I think he's going to be happy with that outcome.
Yeah, we see check in with Hydra. Forwards, we get across the Volta. So, of course, Volta did pick up that major emblem, so we most commonly see it on our friend Varus, but in this case we've gotten far enough into the game we instead can put it onto Soraka instead. That's going to be a ludicrous amount of healing, giving hopefully enough time for Lux to get those casts off despite not having any kind of cast acceleration items.
I'm still worried about the damage, especially into Trusiek's board, where the Lee Sin does so much burst damage. Gunblade is great for healing, but it's not great at stopping the one-shot, and that's what Trusiek's board is all about.
Yeah, I was really worried the entire backline was going to explode, but the angles are getting a little bit awkward. You can see the Soraka getting that heals off. The big problem here is, I think we'll see this from many boards going forward, is just being able to finish off the Lee Sin. Lux has great damage across the AoE, but her single target damage is never going to be quite as good as some of the other units, like perhaps an Ao Shin would be.
Oh, not going to be able to do enough. The Soraka heal is massive there onto Volterix's board. It looks like Trusiek going to be in a little bit of trouble. 15 HP on the board. But we see 4 people here below 20 HP coming into the potential final round for some of them. Ak, Arrow, Trusiek, and Anox at risk of elimination if the round goes bad enough, as Anox finds Shyvana too.
I mean, this is what you're always hoping for, isn't it? When you get a ton of money earlier on, you've got that win streak, you've got the position to be able to play a comp like this. This is a pretty terrifying version, though the items aren't necessarily amazing. We've got 2 different forms of burn, and it's going to go straight into the Lee Sin. I think Shyvana, yes, takes the skies before the Lee Sin gets the kickoff, and this should allow for Shyvana to get a lot of work done, including be able to burn through the max health, which of course, Dragon Monsters don't like very much, but if they get kicked in the face and die, then I guess they can't argue.
Yeah, and that will spell the end there for Anox, despite the early lead, despite the early massive gold investment, just not able to land on a strong enough board. And everyone else will survive heading into stage 6.
That's going to be incredibly disappointing. I think we've seen that across a few different tournament games. It's just, you know, you have this incredibly strong start, but I think maybe what we're seeing over the course of today is that people are more veering towards the late game kind of setups. And I know we've discussed this off of cast, you know, where does the point come beyond which, you know, the tempo you mentioned before, if too many people are going for late game boards, you can't kill all of them with your early game board.
Yeah. And I think it's getting to the point now where we're seeing those boards that were focused more on the early game. Of course, Arrow had a very strong early start, but he's only level 8 still. He went so strong in that early tempo. He tried to keep up with those faster boards and was successful. But now that he's stuck at the top 4, because, like you mentioned, the tempo of the rest of the lobby wasn't fast enough to pressure them, he's going to be falling out. He's going to be at risk to dying to these boards that are headed to level 9.
We do have a good drop in there in the shop. Say, we've got an enormous amount of AP. The comp has been built so far around having an incredibly strong Silas board, but so we've got the Somin, we've got ourselves another AP item to be able to enable this Mage 5 to go even further, and we've got the preparation stacks on most of them. This does look like a pretty good board. I mean, we've got amazing items for the Somin, we've got the double chalice coming as well. It should be very hard to punch through and knock this board over.
Yeah, a lot of damage coming out from that Somin. That's all you need for a Lagoon composition. The Silas 3 as well, we didn't shout out earlier. Great Zephyr there onto the Ao Shin. That's going to slow down this board a lot for Ak.
Yeah, and that makes all the difference. Just a few more seconds, that good bit of scouting could be everything. Of course, Arrow can't afford to take any more L's, really. Oh! There's the power of the Soam. That's a double chalice coming through. And I think that might have even been a crit as well. Those are some crazy numbers.
Barely surviving there for Arrow by the skin of his teeth. Now Ak down to 4 HP. This next round is him facing elimination and barely missing out on a top 4.
Oh boy, I do like the Edge of Night that we've got here for the Ao Shin, but it may be that the power isn't quite good enough.
Yeah.
Of course, you mentioned, of course, they went for the guild early on. They don't have the, perhaps, you know, ideally the Zippy 3. We've got ourselves at least a Twitch 3, but that must have meant they've spent a lot of time re-rolling rather than leveling to get to the point of having these high-star dragons.
Yeah, no Ao Shin 2, no mana generation for the Ao Shin 2. This is going to be a hard fight for him. No two ways about it.
This is going to be Volta's board, Volta's Ghost. We'll see how they end up doing. This could be the gift that Ak needs. You can see the arrow just above them on the table. It isn't that far away, so winning one more round here for Ak, of course, will keep them alive, but maybe gets them into the top 4 as well.
It's too much of an ask. You can see that Ao Shin 1 did nothing even into that Nidalee, who rolled both tank items with that Thieves' Gloves. That will spell the end here for Ak and his board. He'll be falling out, barely missing out top 4. Arrow with 1 HP survives long enough.
Oh boy, well, I mean, we're in the rarefied air. I do love this board for Arrow. The multiple Zerots on the front line, you know, you're just trying to buy time to get through as many casts as possible to get that Soam to kill absolutely everybody, so that makes a ton of sense. You said the Solus 3 is incredibly hard to deal with. We'll keep a close eye on where that Zoe ends up going, though, because being the Zephyr holder, her positioning is crucial.
That's going to be the win or loss for Arrow, and I don't just mean for the next round, I mean for the entirety of the game. If you can get the right Zephyrs, this Soam can stall out, this Soam can power up long enough to get the win. But going to be able to land on the Lee Sin, this buys a ton of time. It's looking great for Arrow.
It does mean Lee Sin's not taking a lot of damage as the kick almost deletes the backline instantly. We have got the healing from the second wind to buy a bit more time to work with.
Oh!
Some get hit again. Arrow just got kicked out the lobby.
There it goes. Trusiek lasting longer than I personally expected. This Lee Sin, the positioning has improved significantly here from Trusiek. You remember previous rounds, he was losing just to not having the Lee Sin in the right spot to hit the backline. But that game, we saw what good positioning does for that Lee Sin, just decimating the Soam after a few kicks.
Well, it's particularly fascinating because the Lee Sin has to stay in the center of the board, so being able to position around them should be very much possible. I mean, you know, we saw the Zephyr as well, knocking them up in the air. Yeah. It's a real conundrum, I think, that we just haven't seen a ton of Lee Sin being played across the lobbies. So I think maybe our players just aren't fully ready or have that deep bag of tricks to be able to deal with it.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a while since we've had to position against the Lee Sin, right? When was the last time Lee Sin reroll was meta? I feel like it was back in just set 7 proper, back when Dragonmancer Flex was the way to go. So even though it is Eye of the Storm, even though this Lee Sin is sitting in the same spot, the positioning of Trusiek's units around it and the positioning of his opponent's boards is what's making the difference here.
All right, well, we'll see. We've got 7 Dragonmancer. Shouldn't be able to get all the way up to 8, but we're still trying to pump in as much power as possible up against Volta's board. That's got the Zoe creeping into the back to give that a little bit of extra utility. Should be getting an enormous amount of rewards of Volta at this point because of having all these Astrals all game long. The big question still remains, can Lee Sin kill everybody? And he's kicking perhaps in the ideal directions right now. Oh,
yeah, but he did just find the Lux. I mean, that's the thing. He lasts so long because of the Bloodthirster, because of the healing, that even if he kicks in the wrong direction, as long as he's kicking someone and dealing damage, he's going to stay alive. And that means that Trusiek is going to survive yet another round, taking Volterix down to 12 HP, putting him in potential elimination before he can reach stage 7.
Oh, this is really fascinating. Dark Hydra's getting some upgrades in here as well. I'm definitely with you, and this is feeling like a really, really strong setup for Trusiek. I think, you know, Volta will be the first ones to be demanded an answer. I think they will have the 2-star Zoe coming in. And we did see a little taste of that in the previous round, that if you've got, you know, the intervention from the Zoe, those invincibility frames from units, if those land in the right places, that can change everything.
Okay, watch the Zoe here. That is going to be the crucial difference maker from this backline. We know the Lux isn't pumping out as much damage as you want. So Hydra, positioned well with this Deja, is going to get a huge wave across the board as Zoe pops in with the ultimate, stalling a little bit longer for the front line. Lux, good healing across the back of the board, but that Terra is unstoppable, allowing Deja to fire off consistently from the back. There goes the front line of Volta getting low. The Zoe invuln for the time being stalling out, but look at that Yasuo. Unkillable in the front with the Terra. The Deja doesn't even have to do that much damage. She's got all the time in the world. And it looks like Volterix will, after a long and hard-fought battle, survive to live another day.
Oh my gosh, yeah, I was on the train there thinking Volta was going to get eliminated as well, but I mean, that's absolutely huge for them. I'm still not totally convinced by going all in on just casting items on the Lux, because you're just getting so much less DPS over time, but the Gwynsia's Rage Blade for Volta, that's absolutely massive. Of course, we can see that Zoe has already got a Spirit Shojin ready. She's going to be casting an absolute ton with that.
Yeah, right now his composition is built around a war of attrition, essentially. because you have this Rage Blade on the Soraka to get her heals out. She has a Mage Spatula as well, and you have these massive frontline units with healing coming in from the Lux. So even though the DPS in the back aren't doing a lot of damage in bursts, they're doing a lot of damage over time, and the frontline is just completely unkillable. That's the only way Volta is going to continue winning these rounds.
It's looking for an upgrade on our friend Jace. Unfortunately, he's getting a little trolled, but eventually we'll find it. That is a 3-item Jace as well. And of course, we've got the preparation stacks, which Volta was making sure were fully equipped. Dark Hydra has got their final setup. We've got 3 players on pretty similar HP. It's going to be Trusiek against Hydra. In comes the Storm.
Now, Terra in the front line is going to be able to block a single kick there, but now the defenses are down. The Lee Sin with the kick into the back line. And now Deja dove onto, but Lee Sin unkillable in the front line still. The heal from Soraka is massive. The knockup not going to be enough as Dark Hydra takes a chunk and gets taken down to 3rd.
Oh my gosh, there just doesn't seem to be any kind of answer at all. Wow. I mean, I'm coming impressed here because the Dragon Monsters, they're doing a hell of a job, and perhaps they are some kind of answer here. Volta will, of course, have the stronger board than last time they faced off against the Lee Sin. She said the component pieces around the Lee Sin have been creeping up stronger and stronger. We've actually got a Radiant Chalice there for Trusiek if they put that Yasuo next to the Lee Sin to make him even more impossible to kill.
Yeah, that's going to be... I think that's going to be the difference maker. If you can get that, the additional AP is going to do so much for this Lee Sin.
All right, Volta, show us what you've got. The knockup onto Lee Sin as we'd expect, but perhaps this may not be enough. We've got the Zoe building up a huge amount of charges on the backline as Lux slowly puts out her cannon shots across the board. The Lee Sin stands triumphant, godlike in the middle of the board. Intervention buys a few more seconds, but it doesn't matter. You can stay alive for a moment longer, but it doesn't change results. Surely that Lee Sin is still nearly up on full health. And despite everything Volta could throw at them, they'll get another chance, but this round belongs to the god Lee Sin.
And I don't think that's going to be an easy result to change. You were seeing the issue. Volta's composition is really good at stalling if you can't kill the front line immediately. And Peter, I'm going to ask you a quick question. What carry is really good at killing people immediately?
Oh boy.
Maybe a Lee Sin, I think, is going to be the answer there.
I mean, I didn't want to provide these spoilers. I wanted to leave people in suspense for this final round. We have got interestingly, a Radiant Zephyr coming in, which is pretty goddamn troll, but Volta did see it coming and moved their units out of the way, so it's the Soraka up in the air rather than the Lux, which would have been immediately round ending. Of course, we'll keep our eyes very closely on Lee Sin, staying in the center of the board to get the Eye of the Storm.
Good angle.
They do go down pretty low, but I still don't think they've quite got it.
The Soraka in the back to keep the Lee Sin up. The damage is too much to deal with here, and it should just be 2 more kicks for the full health Lee Sin to win this game here for Volta. This poor Chase. Peter, he's doing all he can, but it's not going to be enough.
He's trying not to look at him. He says, no, turn this evil away from me. I don't even want to consider it anymore. We have been sent a message here by Trusiek. This is a comp that could absolutely be in a lot more of our lobbies, and at least in this lobby, there was